My name is Dan Dorval, and I'm President and CEO of Dorval and Chorne Financial Advisors. I am an independent certified financial planner and author of my book, Financial Success for the Rest of Us, Reality-Based Financial Planning for Mainstream America.
Hi, my name is Leah Woodley. I'm an associate financial advisor with Dorval and Chorne Financial Advisors. Our conversations discuss what it means to do quality of life planning in all areas of your life. Dan, sometimes we have rather serious meetings where we meet with a client who has lost a loved one. Sometimes that has happened unexpectedly. And there are a lot of dynamics at play when those situations occur. You recently met with a nurse who experienced the loss of her spouse. Why don't you tell us what happened?
Life changes are the biggest trigger to financial planning changes because based on our values and priorities and motivations, the loss of a loved one or a disability or a sickness ends up being one of those things that really impacts how we want to move forward in our lives. And this particular nurse lost her husband actually a number of years ago, and she came to us wanting to know if she was okay for retirement. And she had an existing advisor. It was the advisor of her husband, and so she felt a very strong emotional connection to this person. But at the same time, her coworkers had suggested that she come to see us, and specifically because we know so much about her nurse's pension and all of the different things she's got going on with her retirement. So she came in, sat down with us, and one of the biggest factors that we talked about with her is she felt like she wasn't able to retire. She had a lot of fear. And we see this from widows a lot because they're alone. They don't have somebody right there with them to bounce off like, hey, are we okay? And what does retirement look like? And so talking about these things is very hard for them. So we started to talk to her about quality of life, what retirement looks like, how that's going to feel for her. And she said, I just don't think I have enough. And one of the things as we went through her resources that were available, she had a very significant M&A pension. She said her other advisor only talked about investments and didn't know anything about the pension and wouldn't talk about it with her. So that was a big foundational aspect of her retirement income. The second thing is I relayed to her that one of the most impactful financial resources for anybody who has survived, a spouse is Social Security survivor benefits. And those are different than Social Security retirement benefits. These are specifically, in her case, if she were to retire, even today before age 62, she's currently 60. And so before age 62, she could claim her full spousal survivor Social Security benefit on her husband. And she had no idea. Her other advisor had never talked to her about this resource. And I said, you could claim that benefit. And this, then you can wait on your own. Her benefit was bigger. She made good money as a nurse. And so she could collect that benefit and then wait on her own benefit and allow it to continue to grow all the way until age 70 if she chose to, and then refile Social Security benefits on her own larger earnings record and get a significant increase. But along the way, she would have her pension, she would have survivor Social Security, and then knowing down the road she'd have a much larger Social Security from her own record, we were easily able to show her not only did she have enough, but she could retire much earlier than she expected. And this is really important, Leah, that the benefit of financial planning and advice, our biggest value to people, is giving them perspective through our experiences. And that perspective then opens up possibility in their minds that they never imagined. And for her, what that meant was I, in my mind, thought, I can't retire. I don't have millions of dollars. I just don't have enough. And I'm afraid that I'm going to run out. So she's working from this position of fear. And by knowing that we've helped thousands of nurses over the years, and knowing that we understand the puzzle pieces of Social Security, pension, how her health insurance will be, transitioning into retirement, we could address those fears and not make those fears go away, but start to have her think in terms of what's possible. And now she can go home, she can process this and say, okay, right now I'm working because I get fulfillment, satisfaction. She has this void in her life that she always anticipated sharing retirement with her spouse. And that death created that void of what she wants to do going forward. So she's unsure what she wants to do. But at the same time, we now opened up possibility, because one of her biggest goals was to buy a home. She's currently renting with somebody else to try to keep her housing costs low. But what she really wants to do is buy her own home, and she wants enough space. She loves to garden. She wants to be able to get her hands dirty. She wants to do these things. If she's going to be retired and have time, that's what she wants to do. But she sees these homes that she's interested in. She goes, I can't find anything for under, $400,000, $500,000, at least that I really want. And we could show her, you're going to have the income when you're no longer working to even be able to afford something that you feel is just too expensive. Like I can't afford it. And that is the profound power of financial planning to improve quality of life.
Wow. That is exactly what you said. That shows how we improve quality of life. I think that also highlights the difference between just wealth management and actual fiduciary level financial planners, because it's really unfortunate that she was living under that fear so long just because the person she was working with didn't know about Social Security and didn't want to take the time to learn about her pension. So that was awesome that we were able to provide her with that freedom. One thing that we absolutely do all the time is just give people that peace of mind. That's like a stress reliever to know that I'm able to retire whenever I want to. I'm able to buy my dream home now that I have the knowledge of all the pieces of my puzzle. So that was awesome that you were able to put that together for her. One thing I want to highlight that you mentioned was the fact that she had this emotional attachment to the advisor because of her husband. We've also seen that with people having an emotional attachment to money. It may be an inheritance from a spouse or a loved one, and they don't really want to touch that money. So, do you want to touch on what that looks like, just overcoming those emotional attachments?
Yeah, it's different for everybody too, because for a lot of people, they'll say to us, maybe I inherited money from my parent or, grandparent or somebody that I loved, and I see this money and I go, well, if I use this, then it's gone, and that connection is also gone. And we'll have other people say, but I know they would have liked to see me do this, maybe pay off their mortgage, maybe take a trip, maybe do something that they really enjoy from a quality of life perspective. And when we have to work with people who are all the way on those different sides of the spectrum, it is fascinating to see how people respond. And so we always bring that whole question back to, what is this money for? Is it just to sit in an account? Maybe it's growing, maybe it's not. And now I have more. But if I never feel empowered to use it in some positive way, whether that's gifting, charity, or my own needs that I have, well, what's the value of that money anyway? And for her, she had money set aside, and she had always thought that this money was really for a house. So she hadn't invested conservatively, and that was appropriate for her situation. And the other advisor had done it that way, and that made sense to us. But yet she was very hesitant to pull the trigger on buying a house, because then she would use that money for exactly what it was for, but then it would be gone. And then that connection to her husband, she would feel that that's also gone. And so it's important for us to allow these people, to open up that possibility, first off, that I can do this, but to give them that space and time to think through and process on their own, to come to grips with the reality, okay, my loved one is gone, but now I need to move forward in a positive way with the resources that I have.
Yes, I think that's good when you said give them that space and time. Sometimes people just need that, and sometimes they need to hear someone else, just give them some perspective. And I know you mentioned that's part of the value we provide, just being able to give people the perspective that they need to process and to think about what they want to do going forward. So that's really important. Another thing, I remember there was a nurse that we met with, and her husband died suddenly. And she was kind of in the dark about their finances. He kind of laid things out for her, but she just had no clue what that meant. So, do you want to talk about the importance of spouses at least having some type of frame of reference when it comes to their finances? I know in this situation with the nurse you just met, they did have an advisor and they did meet together with that advisor. But do you want to talk about the importance of, at least having some knowledge of what's going on with your finances in the event that there is an unfortunate tragedy?
So many of these unfortunate situations result in particularly women ending up feeling like they were going to be okay if something bad happened. And they would come to us, especially nurses. A lot of nurses are just not really engaged in their finances. They always say to us, this isn't my thing. My spouse takes care of this, and I really don't know that much about it. But I've always been told that I'm going to be okay. When we see a situation where that happens and then they're not okay, that is one of the toughest conversations we ever have, because we can't go back in time and fix it. All we can do now is move forward from there. And it's a really sad situation when the spouse maybe was making decisions that weren't necessarily in their best interest. And what we see a lot, this is kind of a gender stereotype, so bear with me. I realize that not all people fit these stereotypes. But what happens is, so many men that handle finances for the couple, they assume that everything will be okay no matter what happens. And they don't think through, like, what if there's a worst case scenario? What if something happened to me, for example? How would my spouse address this whole situation with lost income and the resources we have? And so then women are just told, well, we're going to be okay. And sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. And having a trusted advisor, that's one of the most important things, is for couples to come in, and maybe one has a really firm grasp on their financial situation. Maybe the other one doesn't. And maybe they don't really feel comfortable talking about it at home because there's some conflict there, there's some friction. And, I'm just going to avoid that. Well, when you get together with an advisor, a lot of times that is that conversation where people can now talk to us rather than talking to their spouse. And it almost turns into therapy to some extent. We are not therapists, but at the same time, that conversation opens up a lot of emotional connection for them to truly understand together, am I okay? Or are there things we need to address now from a risk perspective to make sure we will be okay?
Yeah, I think that is so important. And I think it's great to have somebody that you can at least turn to if something bad were to happen. At least I know I can call Dan and he can figure this out for me. Yeah, but I think it's critical to at least have somebody, or to at least know what is going on. I think it's unfortunate when there are situations where people don't even know what accounts they have. So that has happened, and we've seen that before. So it's really important that that line of communication is open, whether it be with an advisor or just among the spouses. It's important to know, because you never know what's going to happen. So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that it does help someone just to think about preparing for, you know, what life has to offer, whatever life throws our way. So I hope this benefits someone. Please go ahead and like this video if you enjoyed the content, and subscribe to our channel for more quality of life topics just like this. Anything else you want to say, Dan?
Life is a messy, messy thing. And we would love that it always takes us down the path that we hope. But unfortunately, that isn't always the case. So having a partner to guide you through that process is critically important.
Absolutely, it is. Well, thank you for watching. And until next time, take care.
Thanks, Leah.